I grew up in Frostburg, Maryland. I don't know why, but I had crazy friends. One in particular, his name's Brian Broadwater. He's still alive today. He had 6 children, but he has 5 now. He still lives in Frostburg. He's a car salesman. His nickname is Mad Dog. He got it in 9th grade in football. He tried to nail some senior cheap, and the senior about killed him, and then they called him Mad Dog, and it stuck. He's a white dude. At that time, he had an afro that, one of those afros that you could like lose a piece of pizza in there, or a screwdriver or something like that. He's about 5'5", about 325. He wasn't running any marathons. But anyway, he was the youngest of 5 brothers. And the Broadwater family had a rule. I call it the hockey fighting rule. If anybody got in a fight in their family, the only time they would stop is if the people actually fell on the ground. So I've witnessed some pretty big, brother-to-brother battles in that house. In 10th grade, I didn't have a driver's license, neither did Mad Dog. And in the summer, we were desperate to go somewhere. Mad Dog's older brother, Ronnie, whose nickname was Sluggo, this dude's like 6'5", like 500 pounds. He was home because he lived in Arizona, but he had some kids, didn't pay child support, basically left them and headed back home to Maryland. He was a federal fugitive because he didn't pay his child support, so he's living at home. At the time, he's probably 35. He drove this Ford Fairlane 4-door car back when they were built like aircraft carriers. And the weird thing about this car was he smoked, and one time he flipped a cigarette and went in the back seat and burnt the whole back seat out. So he took those web-based lawn chairs and like welded them in the back of the car. I get this phone call in the summer, says, hey Chuck, you want to go to the Allegheny County Fair? And I'm like, man, I would go anywhere to do something. How we go, and Sluggo's going to take us. And I'm like, I knew it wasn't, if something would happen with Sluggo, it's when. But I accepted it out of desperation, and 5 o'clock, they show up at the house, and I go out, walk out. Both rear windows were down. You couldn't wind them up. We'd no air condition. Open the door up, there's my lawn chair. I get in it and slam the door. We head to Cumberland. Allegheny County Fair is it's a big fair. It's a lot like the Delaware State Fair, and it's down outside of Cumberland. We drove down there, and there's a location there where the fairground sits, and then in front of the fairground there's like a little community where there are houses and yards. And a common practice is, rather than spending the $10 to park at either end of the fairground, you can spend $5 and park in somebody's yard. And they got these yards roped off with like warning tape and pylons. And a lot of the locals, property owners, wear like these orange highway vests, and they try to get you to go in. Well, we're driving in there, and Sluggo, the fact that he weighed 500 pounds, he was cheap. He wanted one of these spots up there outside the fair. And we're riding around looking for a spot. Well, right in front of us, as we're going down the road, we see this girl. Now, I don't know when exactly, but spandex was invented in the 70s. A lot of the guy bands wore them. But there ought to be a weight limit on spandex wearing. Like if you weigh over like 30 pounds, you shouldn't be allowed to wear them. And this girl exceeded that weight limit by quite a bit. Now, when you walk behind someone, if you ever notice, like butts operate differently. Like somebody's butt might move like that when he or she walks, and some move like this, right? Okay, well this girl's moved like that. And she's in front of us, and it was bright pink spandex. And I'm in the back, Mad Dog was up front, and Sluggo's over driving, and Sluggo said, slap her. And I couldn't hear him. I was afraid of the dude. And I didn't say anything. And Mad Dog said, what'd you say? And he said, without looking, slap her. And Mad Dog's like, what? And he said, when I get next to her, reach out the window and slap her like that. And Mad Dog's like, no. And Slug's like, yeah. And Mad Dog's like, no. Okay. So we're driving up, and she's walking, and I'm like, here we go. Okay. And people behind us are blowing, trying to get us to move. Finally, Slug stops the car completely on this little road, and she's walking, and Slug goes, when I get up next to her, reach out and slap her. And Mad Dog goes, no. And he said, slap her. And he tromps on it, and he's rolling down this little neighborhood street. We're probably going about 25 miles an hour, and right before we get to her, Mad Dog says, no, and Slug goes, slap her, and Mad Dog screams, no, one more time, and right when we get next to her, he reaches out the window, and crack! It sounded like a rifle going off, and I turned around, I looked out the rearview mirror, this girl was grabbing her butt, and she must have been jumping about that high off the ground. In an evasive move, Sluggo starts driving like an idiot, trying to avoid people seeing us, and he had about 3 of these cones wedged underneath the car, you know, warning tape riding by. He's driving. I'm laughing so hard I couldn't breathe, and Mad Dog's sitting up front. We finally wedged our way through this little neighborhood and back out on the highway, and drove down a little ways. Slug couldn't see for the tears, so he had to pull over. I grabbed the seat, and when I pulled up, Mad Dog's sitting like that, and he wouldn't talk, he's white. What happened, eventually, Sluggo took him home, and when he smacked her, he broke his arm all the way through. The only thing holding his hand on to his arm was basically skin and some tendons and some ligaments and that. He'd broken his arm completely. It's a wild day.